We can call them lazy. We can call them, you can call them party loyalists. Whatever reason you conjure up. And I'm not calling them lazy, and I'm not even calling them party loyalists. I'm just saying there's two extremes, perhaps, by which you can characterize people who support straight ticket voting. But I'm saying, I think if that's what a person wants to do, I don't see why they shouldn't have the option to do it. I would never advise it, and I would never do it myself, but I don't see why the option can't remain.
Alrighty, welcome in. It's your favorite political podcast. It is Alabama Politics This Week with Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Great, man. Great. It's a beautiful day today, so it's a good day to be alive.
Yeah, it's been nice. A little stormy, but not terrible. Today, tomorrow is going to be a little stormy as well. I hear tell of some bullshit next week about some teens wind chills. But
I did hear about that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
We're
it
gonna
may
say
plummet
that
down into the 40s next week, right?
Yeah. We're gonna say that the weathermen are wrong. Right now, it's fake news. We're just gonna deny it like the Trumpers do. We're just gonna deny it. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's fake news.
Right, not happening. Fake news. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, before we get going, I'll tell you some real news. Our friends over at Wind Creek Entertainment are still operating the best resort hotels in the state. They are in Atmore, Wetumpka, and Montgomery. It's Wind Creek, and you go and find them. Book a stay. Look. Spring break is coming up. I know it's not this week, but next week up here in North Alabama for several school systems. So I'm telling you, when you're making the trip to the beach down there, find the Wind Creek folks, book a stay, have yourself a nice extra day. Have yourself a nice trip to the spa. Let the kids play at the resort pool. Yeah. Let mom go to the spa. Have some fun playing the games. Eat at the nice restaurants. Just have yourself a good time. You will not regret it. Look them up online at Wind Creek Entertainment. They're not the state's #1 hospitality employer for no reason. Okay, they know what they're doing. They have you will not believe. It's every time I go. You think, man, you just forget how good the service is. You forget how friendly the people are. You forget how well trained they are with everything. It's just a whole different level of service. And I'm telling you, you got to experience for yourself. Book a stay, go and have a good time. We appreciate what they do for us, and we really would hope that y'all would go and spend some time with them.
Absolutely.
All right, we got a good show. We got Gina Barton is going to join us from USA Today. They've done a fantastic deep dive into the issues in Walker County with Sheriff Nick Smith, who will hopefully be a short-term sheriff, and then we won't hear of Nick Smith again for quite some time.
Though, based on her reporting, I'm not sure he's going to be a short-term sheriff, which is really kind of mind-boggling to me, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't understand. And maybe we can talk about it on the other side after we talk to her, and do that, because there's some things I just don't understand with people anymore. And but before we get into all that, there is some good news. Rare good news day. News. Ivey today. We're recording on Tuesdays. Normally we record on Wednesdays. Put the thing out on Friday mornings, as you know. We're recording on Tuesday. I had to handle some business on Wednesday. None of your business, but it's my business. So I'm going to. We recorded on Tuesday afternoon, and Ivey earlier today has commuted the sentence of Charles Lee Burton, and it was something. Honestly, I cannot believe that it got to this level. That it got to this point where we needed to do this. I think it could have been done quietly some months back and not reach this level of intrigue and attention. But you know what? Ivey did what I would say is the right thing.
Absolutely, she did.
It's, if you're unfamiliar with Burton's story at this point, I don't know really how you could be, but given what has gone on and the attention that it's garnered. But Burton was part of an armed robbery that took place in '91, I believe, at an AutoZone.
I think it was 91. Or was it 81? It was either 81 or 91.
It was in the 90s. I couldn't remember if it was 91 or 94, but it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so, he was part of that armed robbery. He robbed the store, went outside, was waiting outside when another of the folks who robbed the store shot and killed a customer in the store. I think I mistakenly called the person who was shot and killed a clerk in a story that I wrote about this, but it was actually a person who was in the store.
Customer.
And killed him. And for that, whenever a murder happens during the commission of another crime, everyone who is involved in that crime can be charged with murder. And that's what happened with Charles Burton. And so he was sentenced to death for his role in that murder, which, I got to say, I could quibble with on a lot of levels. I'm okay with charging people for a murder that occurs during the commission of another crime. I'm not okay with it reaching the level of a capital offense. Mm-hmm. That's where I draw the line. If you're not the person who pulls the trigger and does that deed, I just feel, like there's got to be something that makes the actual commitment of the deed more severe. Okay. Yep. There's got to be. Yep. And if you want to tell me life without parole, all that. Okay. But I think there's a big difference in the commission and the responsibility of the people.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, the fact that a person, Mr. Burton, was part of the commission of a crime that led to somebody being killed is a serious thing. So the fact that he was involved, I think, does make him culpable to some degree, because if the crime hadn't happened, then the man would still be alive. But Mr. Burton had nothing to do with the actual killing of the gentleman. And in fact, he wasn't even on the premises when the man was killed. And then on top of that, the man who actually pulled the trigger had his sentence reduced to life imprisonment. So how are you going to say that the actual shooter is not going to be executed, but somebody who wasn't even on the premises is going to be executed? That's inherently unjust.
Yeah, and ultimately that is what apparently led what swayed Kay Ivey as well. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that she just said she couldn't in good conscience. That's the terminology that she used in the statement that she issued. Mm-hmm.
But Josh, answer me this.
Sure.
The facts hadn't changed in 30 some odd years related to this crime. How is it that even up until, as you said, this is Tuesday, we're recording this week, even up until yesterday, the governor's office was still saying the governor has reviewed the case and she doesn't see any reason not to let the execution go forward? How is that possible?
I didn't realize she had put out a statement previously, or that they had put out a statement.
There was a statement. I saw reporting. Now maybe she didn't say it yesterday, but I read reporting yesterday, and I think it was published yesterday, if my recollection is correct, that even up to that point that story was published, the governor's office position was still
wrong.
That the governor's office position, still was the same. So I don't get it. I don't understand.
I don't either. I mean, I don't, first of all, I don't really understand why this couldn't have been handled. Like I said, months, if not years ago.
Yes.
With much less fanfare, and when the sentence of the actual shooters was reduced.
Yes.
Why would you not have just gone in at that point and said, "Hey, we're going to commute the sentence down to X, Y, and Z"? And listen, I say that with complete understanding that there is a whole complicated and nuanced set of laws related to death penalty cases and what you can and cannot do in the law. It's one of the things where you tell people, well, this guy was screwed at trial. They had evidence that he wasn't there, and they do this. Well, why can't they just present that on appeal? And you try to explain, well, you can't do that because it's got to be new evidence, but that's what it's got. So there's a whole different set of laws and rules that go into these sorts of things. And so I'm not sure if maybe something prevented that. But regardless, I don't understand why at some point somebody didn't put something on in front of Kay Ivey or Robert Bentley and said, hey, look, this guy who killed the AutoZone customer in 91 just had his sentence commuted. We should go ahead and commute the sentence of Mr. Burton as well. But here we are, and I gotta say, it built up a lot of tension. It built up a lot of attention, and to do so now was a bigger jump for the high stepper Kay Ivey. And she jumped it, she made the high step, and did it. I don't understand. Like I said, I wrote in a column a week and a half ago that I just didn't understand what we were doing with this. Here it was an easy call to make, I thought, because nobody I thought was going to attack her for this.
And she had plenty of cover. I mean, if it's politics, she had cover from prosecutors. She had cover from jurors. Yep. She had cover from the family. I mean, the family of the victim, the Battle family. I mean, she had plenty of cover. So I just don't understand why it took so long and had to be dragged out to such to such a degree. Why?
You know why?
Why?
People like Steve Marshall. That's why. People like Steve Marshall is why.
Okay.
Because within minutes, within minutes of Kay Ivey, within minutes of Kay Ivey issuing her commutation and saying that she was going to commute the sentence, Steve Marshall issued the following. I am deeply disappointed to learn that Governor Ivey has commuted the death sentence of Sonny Burton. While the media has done its best to paint Mr. Burton as a harmless, decrepit old man, he is a murderer. He organized an armed robbery, held a gun to the store manager's head, and callously doled out the proceeds of the robbery once Douglas Battle, an Army veteran, was dead. Burton was a career criminal before he became a murderer, and the jury rightfully held him responsible for the death that he caused. Long-standing Alabama law recognizes accomplice liability, as has every judge that has touched this case over 3 decades. There has never been any doubt that Sonny Burton has Douglas Battle's blood on his hands. Burton does not deserve special treatment because he is old. He could have been executed a long time ago, but like many death row inmates, he chose to drag out his case through endless, frivolous appeals. I firmly believe that he should have faced the punishment imposed by a jury of his peers and upheld by numerous judges. I do not want today's result to cause Alabamians to lose faith in our justice system. For as long as I am the Attorney General, I will not shy away from calling evil evil, and will do everything in my power to ensure that violence perpetrated against innocent Alabamians is punished mightily and without hesitation.
Blah, 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 wah, wah, wah is how I feel about that. Simply because of the fact that, as we've already established, the man who pulled the trigger had his sentence reduced to life in prison. So Steve Marshall's logic falls as flat as a tire that is losing air, because there's no logic to executing somebody who didn't pull the trigger. You can say that he had blood on his hands. Okay, I won't even dispute that. He had blood on his hands because he was involved with this robbery. He says he was the mastermind. I don't know if that's true or not. That could be hyperbole from Steve Marshall. But even if we want to say that he was the mastermind, even if we want to say that the facts show that he held a gun to the person's head, he didn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
He didn't pull the trigger.
Well, let me tell you one surefire way that you could have that Charles Lee Burton could have gotten Steve Marshall on his side, and that would have been to wear a badge while he did the murder, because we know for a fact that Steve Marshall has previously stepped in to a murder case, to a murder conviction, overturned it by his own authority in the case, decided to get rid of the murder sentence, the manslaughter sentence. I'm sorry, the manslaughter conviction of the police officer in Montgomery who killed Greg Gunn. And Aaron, it was Aaron something or other, A.C. Smith, I believe was his name, was the police officer, killed Greg Gunn just a few steps from his own front porch while Greg Gunn was trying to run away from him. And Steve Marshall took over that case, the prosecution of that case on appeal, and ultimately decided that he had served enough time in jail, which was about a quarter of the amount of time that he was originally sentenced. And it took years to send him to jail. It took moving the case to a county where there was a majority of white people, out of Montgomery County into a county where there's a majority of white people. He was convicted of manslaughter. A judge in that case sentenced him, I believe, to 14 years in jail. And Steve Marshall intervened during the appeals process and allowed him to get out of jail. We know for a fact he did pull the trigger. Pulled it. Matter of fact, I believe shot him 7 times.
Wow.
And so we know what took place there. We know that he did in fact pull the trigger. And so it just matters, I guess, maybe the race of the person matters a little more. Maybe, but I think what matters far more is the pandering bullshit that Steve Marshall can put out there to try to aid him with some deplorable voters that might be swayed by the fact that they executed a person for this or that, or let a cop off for executing somebody else. And that's who we're playing to here. That's who the guy who wants to be our next U.S. Senator from the state of Alabama is playing to. The guy who served as our Attorney General for 2 terms and then part of another one that he took because he agreed not to prosecute Robert Bentley for some crimes.
Yeah.
That's who we're dealing with. We're dealing with a guy who also accepted campaign cash. Should be a felon, actually. Should be a felon because he accepted campaign cash from a PAC-to-PAC transfer. But whatever.
Well, you mentioned his aspirations to be a U.S. senator. It looks like he's in some trouble, doesn't it? Because Barry Moore has gotten Trump's endorsement, and I think Barry Moore's way ahead in the fundraising, isn't he? Or at least he's
certainly taking it. He's certainly taken a pretty big lead. I want to say it was a month before last. Last reports, I believe Steve Marshall raised like $6,000, which I think I could have raised $6,000. But it's been a tough little time for Steve Marshall, which I'm happy to see. I'm always happy to see. Barry Moore and I don't agree on 99.9% of things. All right. But at least I know that Barry Moore, when he says stupid things, he actually believes them. And to me, there's at least some redeeming quality there to somebody who believes stupid things and is not simply saying them as a means to pander for votes. All right. To me, there is no worse thing than a person who knows better, who has the education, who has the knowledge, pretending to be dumb and doing harmful, hurtful things to people simply for their own betterment. I mean, if you're a dummy and you don't fully understand things and you're just saying these things and people are electing you for that, for what the belief because they somehow or another relate to your stupidity, well, that's one thing. But to do it intentionally, to intentionally hurt people when you know better, that's a whole other level of evil to me. All right. So and that's where I think Steve Marshall falls.
Okay. And I was going to ask you, I mean, I haven't done any reporting on him. I've been out of the reporting business, at least daily reporting business for quite a few years now. What causes you to think that he knows better?
Well, I know that, number one, Steve Marshall, not too terribly long ago, was a Democrat. Was a Democrat serving in Marshall County as the district attorney. Was a contributor to the Obama campaign. Had I've heard him speak before. Matter of fact, I talked to him not long after he was appointed to AG by Robert Bentley. And again, that appointment, you should really go back and take a look at that, and how he got it, and how it came about, and what happened. When the firing of Matt Hart, who was the guy that was in charge of white collar crimes and was prosecuting Mike Hubbard, all of these things kind of tie together. The investigation that was ongoing at the time into Robert Bentley that was being led by Hart and some others, and Luther and the whole Luther Strange ordeal with the Senate seat. All of those things tied together on this stuff, and I believe that launched just the aspirations of Steve Marshall to become this politician. I think somewhere along the way in there, he sold out himself. I do. I mean, I think he sold out himself in this quest for higher office, and you can see it so often. I mean, there are people who know him. There are people who spend time around him. There are people who I think he would say might even be his friends, who I've spoken with, who've talked about this stuff, and they talk about this sort of change that he undertook when he got to Montgomery, and the way he acts, and they don't buy it. It's a phoniness. That's the problem that he has, is he's so phony with a lot of the things that he does that people simply don't buy it. And I think that has always plagued him in his time there, is he sought this attention from so many people for so long, and trying to do these like MAGA things and these hurtful, hateful things to people, and to try to present himself as this tough guy, kind of tough on crime. I'm gonna execute everybody I can kind of person. Which, and when he had just simply been the person he is, I think he would probably be farther ahead. I think he would probably be farther along in his career. I think he would have made a much bigger impression on a lot of people. And I don't think that people would think of him in the disdainful way that they think of him now. And I mean, there are a ton of people out there who just think very, very poorly of him. And I think, and I'm not talking about Democrats, obviously Democrats do, but I think Republicans do. And there was a better pathway for him along the way, and I don't know why he decided to do the things that he did. But it really is kind of a shame. I honestly, he's one of those people. He's kind of like Tommy Tuberville for me. He's one of those people that I bang on a lot because I had higher hopes for. I had higher hopes for Tommy Tuberville. Because of exactly what we've said before. He sat in those living rooms with all of those kids and all of those poor neighborhoods. And he looked at those mamas and daddies in their face and saw how much they've struggled, how much they've put into their kids, how much they've tried, what it means to them for their kids to get ahead. And then he shit on them. He shit on them every single day, and by not taking the job seriously, by not doing what he should. And it's kind of the same way with Steve Marshall. I feel like he knew better. He could have been a better AG than he's been. He could have been a better person in that job than he's been, and stood up for people. But instead, he tried to this pandering stuff to further his own career, and it's disappointing. It is. It's really, really disappointing in a lot of ways. And listen, we all have shortcomings from time to time. We all make mistakes. We all do different things or whatever. But I mean, those guys have hurt a lot of people. They've hurt a lot of people, and this sort of thing right here is part of that. This sort of thing where you portray it in this way, that what people are talking about with Charles Burton. Nobody doesn't want him held accountable for what he did at the store. Everybody thinks that's wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that's wrong.
Of how we're defining accountability, and we're saying that accountability should be applied in a way that's just and equitable, and doesn't go to some crazy extreme. And that's what this would have done had the execution gone forward.
Right. You wanted to kill. You're arguing to kill him. Mm-hmm. That's what you're arguing. I mean, you're not punish him further. Mm-hmm. Kill him is what you're talking about. You're talking about killing this person who didn't kill anyone.
I don't believe in the death penalty, but if we're going to have one, the only person it would have made sense to kill, for the state to kill, is the person who pulled the trigger.
Right.
That's the only
Right.
one that would have made sense. It didn't make sense to kill anybody else.
Yeah. I think we've talked before about my struggles with the death penalty. I know. Oh, I know the extreme cost that it has. I know the moral implications of it. I know how badly we need to make sure we need to do a better job of making sure we're right on whether or not these people committed crimes and where they are. We need to do a much better job. It needs to be easier for people to prove their innocence. It needs to be easier for people to get off of death row if there was some sort of, like in this case, some sort of a hiccup along the way. It needs to be hard to kill and easy to fix the mistakes. All right. And for whatever reason, we've done the opposite. But I also know, what would happen, I've seen crimes. I've seen people do things. I've seen, a lot of it is retribution, and that's the wrong reason for it. It's not that. It should be about making us better as a society. I still have struggle. Like I said, we all have our shortcomings, and that's one of mine. Before we move on to Gina Martin, though, and that I did want to bring up one other thing in the open, and that was what's taking place this week within the Alabama Democratic Party. Joe Reed, the chairman of the Alabama Democratic Conference, vice chair of Minority Affairs for the party, sent out a letter to pretty much everybody. It went out to everybody, as far as I could tell, in which he took to task a group of people, including Mary Moore, who's a bill sponsor, for an effort to remove the straight ticket voting option from the top of the ballot. And if you're unfamiliar with straight ticket voting, that means you go in, they hand you a ballot, and you have the option at the very top of that ballot to tick a box that says you're going to vote for every Democrat on that ballot or every Republican on that ballot. I think that's my thought on it is that is a protection for incumbents for the most part. And I think it's a protection for people who don't work hard. It's a protection for people who don't go out and sell their candidacy. It's a protection for people who aren't able to make some headway in convincing voters to vote for them and to do a good job. And I think that it has caused some pretty bad people to remain in the seats that they're in. And so I have been against this for a long period of time. And I also think that we see the benefits of it in a state like Texas, where the folks the Republicans in Texas thought this was going to be a big win for them in 2020 when they got rid of the straight ticket voting there, and all of a sudden they figured out that when you don't do the things you're supposed to and people get pissed, well, that opens things up for all of those spots down that ballot, and those folks who have been lazy and just relying on the straight ticket Republican vote in a lot of these counties all of a sudden have some independent challengers and some folks from the Libertarian Party and folks that are bouncing around and making life a lot more uncomfortable for them. And it's why Texas, one of the reasons why Texas is now kind of a battleground state. And I think something similar is going to have to happen in Alabama before we can change some things.
Yeah, I think where you are on the death penalty is analogous to where I am on straight ticket voting. Personally, I don't ever straight ticket vote, ever.
Right.
But I don't believe that it is an option that should be removed for people who want to exercise that option. And the sense I've gotten through the years is that there are a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans, who want to exercise this option for whatever reason. Yep. We can call them lazy. We can call them, you can call them party loyalists, whatever reason you conjure up. And I'm not calling them lazy, and I'm not even calling them party loyalists. I'm just saying there's two extremes, perhaps, by which you can characterize people who support straight ticket voting. But I'm saying I think if that's what a person wants to do, I don't see why they shouldn't have the option to do it. I
They
would
have the
never
option to
advise
vote,
it, and
though.
I would never do it myself, but I don't see why the option can't remain.
I mean, you have the option to go straight down the line and vote for the Democrats, but you have to fill in the bubbles. And I think that is that's a small price to pay.
And I get that, but I'm saying if it's the same functionally and they know that's what they want to do, then why not just give them the easier option? Now, the one thing I will say is that when it comes to Dr. Reed's very harsh proclamation or I don't know, I guess you'd call it a proclamation, to say that people deserve to be excommunicated from the Democratic Party if they champion this. I think that's also extreme. I mean, people have a right in the Democratic Party, I think, to say, we don't want straight ticket voting. I think they have a right to say that, just as I think straight ticket voters have a right to say, I'd like to keep straight ticket voting on there. So I just
think it is.
I kind of fall in terms of this whole thing right now. I kind of fall in the middle, I guess.
I think it's protected a lot of bad candidates, is what I think. I think it's protected a lot of bad candidates in majority Republican and majority Democratic areas. I think it's protected, and not necessarily at the top. But I think as you go down the list of candidates, and I think that's what this came down to. I think that's the reason for his outrage. I think that's the reason why he was so adamant about this, is because there are a lot of people that this kind of protects in areas where there may be some middle ground to play if we don't have a straight ticket voting option on there. Because some people, if they have to go down the line and check these things off, that either they're going to say, I don't know anybody in this race and I'm not going to vote for it, or they're going to say, I've actually heard from X over here and I'm going to vote for this person, even though they're a Republican, Libertarian, Democrat, whatever, and whatever is going against the grain in that particular area. And like I said, I think, to me, it is, if you want to win a race, go out and win the race. Don't rely on some technicality at the top of the ticket where somebody checked a box up there that did not actually cast a ballot for you, and they relied on that. I just think it promotes this idea of the thing that we complain about a lot, of this team politics stuff of Democrats versus Republicans, where people more worry about that. And I think we all know where most of our allegiances lie here, but we've criticized a lot people who just go out and continue to vote for Republicans simply because they have an R beside their name. Right. And this only, I think, encourages that.
And that may be, but again, if you got people that are highly inclined to just blindly check off, I mean, what's the real difference? Now, I will say, Alabama's, I think, only one of 5 states that still allows this, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And that in and of itself is probably an indictment, in the political culture of our country, of straight ticket voting. But I would say still,
I would say to your question, what's the big deal? If they're so inclined to do that, well, then why are you fighting against it? Why are you fighting against it so hard if you don't believe that there's a willingness that it changes something? That if it's not going to change anything, then why not just let them go and check off the boxes? Because I think it does change. I think the history of it shows that it changes, and I think the reality of it shows that it does change when they have to go down and they have to read those names and they have to decide who they're going to vote for in there. I think it does change something in their mind about what's taking place in that voting booth. I think most people, before they not everybody, but I think for most people, when they go to check those boxes off, they think about it in their head. And I do think, I think that the majority of them, if they are like us, if they don't know somebody in that race, they are probably going to check the Democrat. All right. They're going to check off the Democrat more than likely. But I also think that there's a good enough chance in there when they read those names that they're going to say, hey, I heard this guy talking, or I know this guy, or I didn't realize so-and-so was running in this race. I think it opens up opportunities for people to use their knowledge, and it encourages, I think, people to be more informed about what they're doing in that voting booth. And I think that ultimately is what we're after in this thing. Now, I don't know if it's going to necessarily lead to Democrats having a blue wave in Alabama or anything, but I think it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to lead to Democrats having a blue wave. I don't think that's going to be the reason if it ever happens, and God willing, it will happen. But I don't think that's the reason why. And I guess I also think, I want to be clear. I am not an advocate of straight ticket voting. I absolutely am not. I just question whether or not we ought to be removing that option. And I'm not here to, that's not a hill I'm going to die on, by the way. I mean, that's just not, if we remove the option, I don't care because I'm not doing it anyway. But
hey, listen,
but I do.
You keep up with this. I'll get Mary Moore in here. Okay. I'll get Mary Moore in here to talk to you about this. You don't want that. You don't want that.
Bring it on, baby. Bring it on. Bring it on.
I'm gonna call her. Yeah, Mary Moore come in here and tell you some things. If Mary Moore's for, let me tell you, I say it like this: if Mary Moore's for it, I'm for it. All right, that's all I'm gonna say. That's
your straight ticket vote, huh, Mary Moore?
That's my straight ticket vote. She tells me I'll call Mary and I'll get her advice. All right, hey, we're gonna slide it. We'll come back with Gina Barton from USA Today in just a minute. Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment.
Yeah.